What does this artist, this broadcaster, and these books have in common? Find out the answers to these questions and more on Meet the Author.
The following is a presentation of the Fairfax Network.
Welcome to Meet the Author. It's a mice place to be. Did I say mice? I meant nice. Hi, I'm Della Kidd. If you haven't heard, it's an election year. And one of the best books a youngster can read about the political process is Woodrow for President, a tale of voting, campaigns, and elections, written by Peter and Cheryl Barnes. Unfortunately, Peter Barnes couldn't make it today as planned because of a late-breaking assignment. But I'm very pleased to introduce you to his wife, co-author and illustrator, Cheryl Shaw Barnes. Cheryl, thanks so much for joining us today.
I am happy to be here, Della. Thank you.
Let's get started.
Sure.
Can you give us 2 or 3 words that would describe the character of Woodrow as well as what he represents?
Woodrow is a good guy. Woodrow is a good family man, and he also is a very active member of his community. That's how he started out before he became president.
He sounds like a good guy.
He's a good guy.
When you created Woodrow, did you know what he would look like before you started drawing?
No. When Peter came up with the name Woodrow, and the reason that we came up with the name Woodrow is because we had to have it rhyme, the alliteration, White House, Woodrow White House. And so we started thinking about our favorite presidents. And the one president that came to mind who was quite a character when he was president was Theodore Roosevelt. And he always had that big smile on his face and lots of teeth. And I also liked his little tiny glasses.
We're taking a look at it on the screen now.
Oh, great. Well, actually, that one isn't so much. The first one I did was about Theodore Roosevelt. Then I thought I'd do one about an older character. And he looks a little too tired. So we went back to the Theodore Roosevelt.
I know that Peter does most of the writing and you do most of the drawing.
Yeah.
What does your publisher do after they receive the final draft?
Well, that's a good question because I'm the publisher. My husband and I decided to publish ourselves. My husband doesn't like me to say this, but I think that the reason we didn't go initially with a publisher was because I just didn't want to have any rejection. And even Dr. Seuss was rejected by 24 publishers before he was accepted, and look at what he's created. And I don't think I wanted to do that. So what we did is we borrowed money and we read a book on how to publish your own book. And about 9 months later, our first book was done. And I remember carrying all my little boxes of books around to people and asking them if they'd like to buy them. And that was almost 10 years ago. So we do it ourselves.
So you're the writers, the illustrators, the marketers, the publishers, the distributors.
Yes, at one time I was actually packing up the boxes myself, taking the orders myself, and delivering them to UPS myself. So now we have other people that help us. But I know every part of the business now.
Goodness. Not too long ago, Peter and Cheryl Barnes invited us to tour their publishing house, VSP Books. Let's take a look, and when we return, we will take your calls. The local number is 703-978-1636. And across the nation, it's 1-800-231-6359. Please, 1 question per caller. And now to VSP Books. Just off the back porch, the phones are ringing, and mice, that's right, mice, are taking over the home of Vacation Spot Publishing.
Hi, this is Catherine, VSP Books.
From this small office, 50,000 books a year are sent to schools and shops across the country. VSP's most popular offering is a series of books featuring mice. Woodrow the White House Mouse, Marshall the Courthouse Mouse. and the capital duo of House Mouse and Senate Mouse. At VSP Publishing, small lessons in government and politics are stored and frequently created in the upstairs attic. Co-author and illustrator Cheryl Shaw Barnes explains.
I'm very excited about my new art cabinet because for about 8 years I actually left all my artwork under my bed in boxes. And so this is very exciting. I got this as a Christmas present from Peter, my husband. This is an original of the Red Room and Green Room, and if you know any of my books, this part goes, and the Red Room and Green Room are not side by side, but they're wonderful places for children to hide when they play hide and seek, and Woodrow is seeking, but he finds them so fast. Could it be that he's peeking? Here's one of the oldest paintings in the White House. This is a painting of Benjamin Franklin. Of course, we changed his name to Benjamouse Franklin. My color separator actually takes this and makes a print from the computer. This is what I get. This is a match print, and I make sure that there are no imperfections, and I like the color, and then this is what I know is actually going to be in my book. And now I'd like to show you where I work, so come with me.
What's next at VSP Books? For now, it's the first few sketches of Madison Mouse, the main character in a future book about the U.S. Constitution.
Let's get his ears in. And I'm going to put Madison's face here, and I'm beginning to also put something back here like a bow, the way they had back in the 1700s. So this is the beginning of what I think I want my Madison Mouse character to look like. I'll probably change it a bunch of times, but that's how I begin my drawings, with a simple character, and then I build from there.
As Cheryl Shaw Barnes manages the daily tasks of illustrating and producing books, her husband and co-author, Peter W. Barnes, works as a broadcaster.
Helping you turn talk into action, this is Take Action America. I'm Peter Barnes. U.S. security forces.
But ideas of mice and telling stories in rhyme are never far from this newsman. At this publishing house, mice take center stage. And why not? They always have a tale to tell.
I have to ask you, what comes first, the words or the pictures?
Well, Peter and I usually talk about the basic, the overall idea of the book together. And then we will think about the different areas that we want to cover. For instance, if we do a book on the White House, we knew that we wanted to cover about 7 rooms of the White House and also cover the job of the president. But once we have that in our heads, then Peter begins to write the story. So I can then see what he begins to write. It might not be in perfect rhyme yet, but then I can take that and start creating some of the pages and envision what those pages are going to be like. Get a few sketches down on a sheet of paper.
Why does he choose to tell the story in rhyme fashion?
Well, we started out this way. Our oldest daughter, Maggie, who's now 20 years old, was severely dyslexic as a child, and we had a lot of problems having her learn how to read, and it turns out I'm dyslexic as well. And so what we realized is that Maggie did so much better with rhyming stories with her learning difficulties. So we decided, why don't we do a book in rhyming verse so kids that might have a little difficulty will have fun reading and almost being able to pick and to guess the word at the end of the line. And then other kids, you know, just everyday regular kids would also have fun with a rhyming story. So that's really why we decided to do it, and then it stuck, so now we're just doing them all that way.
Well, they're a lot of fun to read, and you're right, it's nice to be able to forecast what's coming next and to select what words you think are going to be used. Speaking of words, when you get stumped, as all writers do, I know teachers do, students do, and professional writers as well, where do you get your ideas? How do you choose, how do you achieve that correct word? Can you help us a little bit on that?
You go to one of the local bookstores and you buy rhyming dictionaries.
They're wonderful.
And we have about 4 rhyming dictionaries. And so I just, when we get stumped, we know whether we want a one-syllable word because of the balance of the sentence, or we need a 2-syllable word. We usually have 13 beats per sentence. So then we just figure out in the book which words will work and which words won't. Sometimes we have to change the whole sentence or the whole paragraph to actually make something rhyme.
So you have to establish a rhythm within the sentence.
Yes, definitely a rhythm.
Do you have an example of a favorite stanza that you could share with us?
Yes, and it comes from one of our earlier books. It's from Alexander the Old Town Mouse, about my hometown where I was born. Gadsby's tavern was lit, a most festive display, much the same as it looked in George Washington's day. A feast in the great room, a dance in the hall, what a glorious night for the masquerade ball. And so what we do is we just try to have conversation, but have it be rhyming. It has to flow right. It's hard. You don't want to shove words into a place. It has to flow.
The words flow, and they also help to paint the picture that then you create.
Yes, yes, we try.
We're going to show some examples of pictures that have lots of details of buildings and places and objects. Why is it important to incorporate details?
Oh, well, the kids love details, and I remember the Where's Waldo series. Kids love to find things in the pictures, and I just hope that it gives kids a lot of, they might learn the story, but they also will learn about a certain painting or a certain object that might want them to learn more about the story that we did or the place that we're doing. So I just love details, and I'm a very detailed person, and I just can't imagine doing it any other way.
It would be boring.
Yeah.
We have a picture coming up, if you could help explain to us what we're going to be seeing.
Oh, well, this is one of my favorite pictures. This is from Marshall the Courthouse Mouse, and it's the library in the Supreme Court, and it is truly one of the most beautiful rooms I have ever been in my life. And if you can see the ceiling, it has tons and tons of detail, and the woodwork has details. And what you have to remember is I just started to draw with my Alexander the Old Town Mouse book. I've never had any instruction, and so to go from the pictures in my Alexander Mouse book to this, I sometimes pinch myself, because kids say, how can you do that? And I just say, it's practice, practice, practice. And I learned how to use color pencils better, and I learned how to use markers better. So it's just practice.
Hours and hours, I'm sure.
Hours and hours, yeah.
What about the next picture that we've got coming up on the screen?
Oh, this is from also the Supreme Court book, and this is the courthouse. Actually, I took this picture from the Alexandria courthouse, but I put it in front of a New York skyline to make it look like this would be a courthouse in a big city, because the page is talking about there's different types of courts all over. There's city courts and country courts and even courts underground, of course, for mice. This is all imagination.
We have a call.
Great.
Christopher, what is your question?
I wanted to know how you got the idea for mice in your story.
Hi, Christopher. I love telling this story, Christopher. When I decided to do the Alexander the Old Town Mouse book, I went to the city archaeologist's office, and she, who was very, very knowledgeable in all the Alexandria history, said, when I asked her what character should I do, because I had no idea, she said, oh, you must do a mouse, because when we excavate all over Alexandria, they find little mouse skeletons. So when George Washington was walking around Alexandria, there were lots and lots of mice. Well then, Christopher, I got good at drawing mice, so I decided to stick with it. Does that answer your question, I hope?
I believe it does.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks, Christopher. Vicki, you have a question for Mrs. Barnes?
Yes.
Hi, Vicki.
Hi.
What is your question today?
Huh? How did you get the idea to write about government?
You know what, Vicki? I didn't get the idea. This is another funny story. I was watching my daughter Maggie play field hockey on her school field hockey field one day, and this mother came running up to me, and I'd never seen her before, and she kind of got into my face and she said, I know what book you're going to do next. And I was like, who is she? And how does she know what book I'm going to do next? Her name is Nancy Miller. She's become a good friend of mine, and she told me that they needed a book on the White House because there was no gifts to give kids who came to the White House. And so I worked with Nancy and with the Secret Service agents at the White House, and we came up with Woodrow the White House Mouse. So that began our government series, but it was not my idea.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicki.
In the book, Woodrow the White House Mouse, I understand that you had to make some changes once the book was completed. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I love to listen, particularly to teachers. I'm not a teacher. And being that teachers are using this book across the country, I really want to hear what they have to say to make my books better. And a couple teachers, when I first started out, came to me and said, well, we like this Woodrow book, but it really doesn't address what a president does in the White House. But you have lots of pretty pictures about the White House. So they recommended that I actually change the book and add the job of the president. And so we took 2 of the original drawings out. I did 2 more drawings. We re-edited the book, and now we have a second edition that incorporates the job of the president. And if I get any other good ideas from people about how we could make our books better, I'll change them.
So we have to be very open-minded about continuing the editing and revising process.
Absolutely. Nothing is ever written in stone.
Let's take a look at the changes Peter and Cheryl Barnes made to their book, Woodrow the White House Mouse. Words by Peter Barnes. Voice and drawings belong to Cheryl Barnes.
The primary job of the President Mouse is working with Congress, the Senate, and House on making new laws for the good of the nation, health, peace, and justice for the whole population. The President is required to study each bill that Congress delivers from Capitol Hill. If he signs it, a bill becomes law, it's approved. If he gives it a veto, it's rejected, removed. He's the chief executive, which means he's in charge of government departments, the small and the large. Government departments include transportation, justice and labor, and of course, education.
Cheryl, we have another call in. This is from Mohet. What is your question for Mrs. Barnes?
Why did you pick mice for your books?
Well, I think I answered that with Vicki, but the reason I picked mice is, first of all, I know how to do mice now because I've practiced a lot, but it came from the archaeologist who told me that mice would be a good idea because there's been so many mice around all these historical buildings. So that's why I picked mice. And you know what? Who's the most famous mouse in the world? Mickey Mouse, and he hasn't done so bad, so I figured we could have other mice too.
We have another call in from Meninda. What is your question today?
Hi, Meninda.
Hi, how are you?
Great, thanks.
I was wondering, when you're drawing the pictures for like the White House, did you have to go and look at the rooms?
I did. I had so much fun. I actually went with Nancy Miller. We would get to the White House at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I went out and I bought a very fancy camera with a long lens so I could get all the details and bring the camera home and take the film and get it developed that day. I probably went to the White House about 12 times to do the research for the book. And the Secret Service agents, who are so knowledgeable about the White House, shared all the information with me, and I also used a lot of other books that helped me learn as much as I could about the White House. But I was so excited to be able to go into the White House and look at all the special rooms and open up doors and just see all the places that maybe you might not be able to see coming as a tourist.
Thank you for calling.
Thank
that was a
you.
wonderful opportunity that you had.
That's the great thing about doing these books. I got to go to the Capitol that way and had the curators take me around as well as the Supreme Court. I feel very fortunate that I have the job that I do.
Lots of real research.
Yes, yes.
Did you always like to read and draw?
Well, I always liked to draw, but I don't think I ever had the confidence in drawing until I learned how to draw when I was 39 years old. But reading, no, I did not like to read as a child, and the reason was because I realized when our daughter Maggie, we found out that she had dyslexia, I realized I must have had it as well, because I really didn't learn how to read until I was in the 3rd grade. And it was very difficult. I felt stupid first, second, and 3rd grade, but I tried to hide it from my classmates and from my teacher. My mother helped me every single night and probably did a lot of the work for me, but I did have to struggle. Now I like to read, but it's really, just as an adult, I've gotten the confidence up to feel like a good reader.
We have another call in.
Okay.
This one's from Ashley. Ashley, what is your question for Mrs. Barnes?
What year did you write your books?
Ashley, the first book that we did was not a government series book. It was a book about a special place called Nantucket that my husband's parents live. It's a vacation spot. And that book was done about 10 years ago. And I think it was 3 years after that that we did our Woodrow the White House Mouse book. So it was about 7 years ago that I started doing the government series.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thanks, Ashley. Nikhil is on the line for you.
Okay.
What is your question today, Nikhil?
How many books have you made?
Nikhil, we have done 13 books. That includes a cookbook that teaches kids all about American history and government through recipes. And we also do curriculum guides to help children and teachers learn more about the White House or the Capitol or the Supreme Court. So we have 13 books out, and the next books that we're going to work on is one about the American Revolution, the Declaration of Independence will be one, and then we're going to do a book on the Constitution, and that's the one I was talking about Madison Mouse. And I'm very excited. In January, I'll get to work on those.
We have another call.
Oh, great! I'm so
I
happy
know,
about
this
all
is
these
terrific.
phone calls.
We have a call in from Sean. Hi, Sean.
Hi.
What's your question?
Hi, Sean.
Are you going to make books about recent presidents like Clinton?
No, I'm not, Sean, because I really like going back into history, because history can teach us a great deal. And I've really decided that I want to focus more on our early presidents, and I want to share that information with you, particularly about the first 4 presidents, and that's who I'm studying. I'm studying them a lot these days. I'll leave books about the current presidents to other people. I do like reading them, but I don't think I want to write any.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
At the end of your books, you include detailed notes for parents and teachers, which I absolutely love. Why did you go a step further with Woodrow for president and include the contract to vote?
Well, I have become involved with an organization called Kids Voting USA. They're out of Tempe, Arizona, and they, I think, are doing more to get kids excited about the process, the political process, and get them involved in their communities, and hopefully also encourage them to vote when they turn 18, but now encourage them to get their parents to vote. So this was one way that we could send that contract to vote. Teachers could make a zillion copies of it and get the kids to take it home, share the information with their parents, and get their parents to sign on the dotted line saying, I promise to register and I promise to vote during the next election, because we want the parents to be good role models, certainly, but we want the kids maybe to even guilt their parents into voting. We've got to get people to the polls. Unfortunately, right now, there is less than 49% of eligible voters voting, and they're predicting even lower statistics for this coming election. That's not good. And for primaries and off years, Alexandria, for instance, was 13%.
Well, hopefully this will be a valuable tool.
Hopefully. So we're just hoping that we can get some excitement going.
Recently, we asked a few students about voting. This is what they had to say.
Vote is important because it is our right to choose, and then we can choose people who can represent us.
When I vote, I'm going to be looking for if they are honest, if they don't lie, if they have good reputations and stuff, if they do good things.
You know, even just one vote can make a difference.
When people are elected here in the United States, they keep their promise better than other countries, other places. That's why the United States, I think it's better for you to get a better education, for you to live. That's why there's many people from other countries here.
In India, they vote a lot because they care. But in America, they're just too lazy or they don't like the person they're voting for.
if I were elected, I think I would try to get more funding for schools and just try to help everyone.
I don't know, just like do good stuff.
The students seem to have a very worldly point of view on voting.
Smart kids.
Yeah, absolutely. What kind of advice would you say that Woodrow could lend to candidates that are running for office this year?
Well, actually, I'm going to answer that by telling you a little bit about what I've been doing this summer. I took one of our Woodrow for President books, which is right here, and I wanted to raise money for kids voting, and being that I am not a zillionaire, I decided to get all the living presidents and first ladies to sign this book, and this book's going to be auctioned off. And so, just quickly, here's a couple things. Harry Truman said, "We must have strong minds, ready to accept facts as they are." And President Johnson said, "You need to have a willingness to listen and have great energy." And George Bush said, "Be honest, trustworthy, have respect for others, be kind, and give credit to others." And the last thing he said was, "Don't brag too much." So I'd love to study presidents and hear what they have to say about what's important to them.
That's some great advice.
Yes.
We have one more call I think we can sneak in. This one is from Ashley. Hi, Ashley. What's your question?
Why did you want to work together on children's books?
Well, Ashley, I really didn't know that we really never had a plan to work together. My husband came up with the idea to do a children's book about Nantucket, and he needed help. And being that I was his wife and I was there, I got involved, and little by little it got exciting and it was more fun. And Peter's a very good rhymer and writer, and it turned out that I'm a pretty good illustrator. So even though we didn't know when we got married we'd be doing this, I think we have a good match, and I look forward to working on other books with Peter. We have a lot of fun.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley.
If you could briefly share some advice to our artists, our writers, maybe our future publishers, and our political candidates that may be out there.
Boy.
What would you share with them, very briefly?
Well, I think, let me address to the students out there. I think that the thing that has made us successful is you can't give up. And sometimes you get frustrated and it's very lonely when I'm doing my illustrations, and it's kind of an isolating job, but I don't want to give up because I know I'm going to be very proud of the work once it's done. So don't ever give up, and don't think that it's going to be easy. It's hard to write. It's hard to get the words right. It takes a long time to edit. Sometimes it takes us 3 months to get the words just right, and my illustrations take 6 months. So I think work hard, smile, and don't ever give up. As far as the candidates, be honest and do what's best for our country.
Great advice. Cheryl, thanks so much for coming. It's been a delight to have you. Hopefully Peter will be able to join you the next time we're in the studio together.
I hope so.
If you would like to learn more about the books written and illustrated by Peter and Cheryl Barnes, please contact VSP Books, Post Office Box 17011, Alexandria, Virginia 22302, or email VSP at mail@vspbooks.com. If you want to know more about Kids Voting USA, you can reach them on the internet at www.kidsvotingusa.org. Last but not least, if you have any questions about this broadcast or the Fairfax Network, call us. Our number is 1-800-233-3277. For the Fairfax Network, I'm Della Kidd. Keep writing, keep reading, and keep dreaming.